June 7, 1957, 2:35 p.m. Three men stepped out of a black Buick at the corner of 125th Street and 7th Avenue. Expensive Italian suits, polished shoes, and that arrogant confidence of those who think the world belongs to them. Their names were Paulie Gatto, Marco Vespucci, and Johnny Torrio Jr., nephew of the legendary Johnny Torrio. They came from the Genovese family, and they had a simple mission: take control of the most lucrative corner in Harlem. The corner where the biggest dice games happened, where the numbers were collected, where money flowed like water. There was just one problem. They didn't know that was Bumpy Johnson's corner. And worse, they didn't know that Bumpy was watching everything from a barbershop across the street. Paulie was the first to speak, his voice loud, cutting through the afternoon air. "Attention, everyone. This corner is now under new management. The Genovese family is taking over. Any numbers operation, any game, any business that happens here now pays us 25%. No discussion." There were about 20 people at the corner at that moment. Local merchants, some gamblers, women returning from the market, and an old man named Clifford who had been selling newspapers there for 30 years. Everyone fell silent. Not out of fear, but out of shock. Shock that someone could be so stupid. Marco stepped forward, pulling a .38 caliber revolver from his vest. "Just to make it clear, we're not asking for permission. We're informing. If anyone doesn't like it, they can talk to my little friend here." He tapped the revolver with his other hand, smiling. Johnny Jr. lit a cigarette, leaning against the light pole, as if he already owned the place. "And one more thing," Paulie continued. "We want to know who's in charge of this area. Who collects the numbers? Who organizes the games? Because from today on, that person works for us or doesn't work at all. Period." Across the street, inside Freddie's barbershop, Bumpy Johnson was getting a haircut. He had seen the Buick stop, had seen the three Italians get out, and now he was hearing every word through the open window. Freddie, the barber, froze with the scissors in the air. "Mr. Johnson, these guys have no idea where they are," he whispered. Bumpy remained still in the chair, his eyes fixed on the three men through the mirror. "Keep cutting, Freddie. Just keep going." At the corner, old Clifford stepped forward. He was 72 years old, had seen the Great Depression, had seen gang wars, had seen Harlem change 1,000 times, and he wasn't afraid of anyone. "You boys know where you are?" Paulie turned to him, annoyed. "Of course we know, old man. We're in Harlem, and now Harlem is ours." Clifford shook his head slowly. "You're not just in Harlem, boys. You're at the corner of 125th and 7th. Do you know what that means?" Marco laughed. "It means it's a busy corner, a lot of money passing through here. That's why we're here." Clifford pointed to the barbershop across the street. "It means you're on Bumpy Johnson's corner. And that man there in the barber's chair, getting a haircut? That's Bumpy." The three Italians turned simultaneously, looking at the barbershop. Through the window they could see a middle-aged man, calm, sitting in the chair. He didn't look impressive. He didn't look dangerous. Just an ordinary guy getting a haircut. Johnny Jr. tossed his cigarette on the ground. "Bumpy Johnson? That's the famous Bumpy Johnson? He doesn't even look like much." Clifford gave a dry laugh. "That's exactly why you're going to have trouble. The problem isn't his size. It's his brain." Paulie was getting impatient. "I don't care if he's the King of England. This corner is ours now. If this Bumpy has a problem, he can come talk to the Genovese family." Inside the barbershop, Bumpy finally spoke. "Freddie, how many men do I have in the area right now?" Freddie thought for a moment. "Illinois Gordon is at the Jazz Club, 3 blocks south. Junie Bird is at the post office. Malcolm is at the corner market. And Tommy Guns is, well, somewhere nearby. Always is." Bumpy nodded. "Call Illinois. Tell him to come slowly. No rush. And tell Malcolm to stay where he is. But keep his eyes open." Freddie picked up the phone in the back of the barbershop and made the calls. Bumpy stood up from the chair, the haircut only half done. He straightened his collar, put on his hat, and picked up his cane, an ebony cane with silver details that he always carried. It wasn't just for style. Inside it was a sharp 30-centimeter blade. He walked to the door and opened it slowly. The bell above the door jingled softly. Bumpy crossed the street calmly, his cane tapping the asphalt in a steady rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Each step measured, each movement deliberate. When he reached the corner, the people naturally made space. Not out of fear, but out of respect. The three mobsters turned to face him. Paulie spoke first. "You must be the famous Bumpy Johnson. We've heard about you." Bumpy stopped 3 meters away, leaning lightly on his cane. And yet you came to my corner to make threats. That tells me you either didn't hear enough or didn't pay attention to what you heard. Marco stepped forward, his hand still near the revolver. Look, old man, we don't want trouble. We're just expanding our business. You can keep doing what you do. You just need to pay us our share, 25% of everything. It's a fair deal. Bumpy smiled, but there was no warmth in that smile. A fair deal? You three show up on my corner, threaten my people, pull out guns, and call that a fair deal? Let me explain something to you, gentlemen. This corner feeds 60 families. The numbers that run here pay rent, buy food, keep the lights on. And you want to take 25% of that for what? To fill the pockets of men who live in mansions on Long Island? Johnny Jr. tossed his cigarette on the ground. We don't care about your sentimental excuses, Johnson. This is business. Either you pay or we start breaking things, starting with this old man's legs here. He pointed at Clifford. It was at that moment that Illinois Gordon appeared at the corner. He was a huge man, 6'5", 280 pounds of muscle. He said nothing, just positioned himself behind Bumpy, arms crossed. Bumpy kept talking, his voice still calm. Do you know what happened to the last men who tried to take Harlem from me? Paulie shrugged. No, and we don't care. Bumpy nodded. I'll tell you then. 3 years ago, the Luciano family sent 6 men. Big men, experienced, with reputation. They wanted to do exactly what you're trying to do now. Do you know where those men are today? 2 are in the East River. 1 is in the psychiatric hospital in Bellevue, still thinking he's Napoleon Bonaparte. 2 fled to Chicago and never came back. And the 6th, well, he works for me now. Manages one of my clubs in Sugar Hill. Marco started getting nervous. Are you threatening us? Bumpy shook his head. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm telling history. Education. Because you seem not to understand where you are. This isn't Little Italy. This isn't just any corner in Manhattan where you can show up and take over. This is Harlem. And in Harlem, there are rules. Johnny Jr. was getting irritated. What rules? Your rules? Exactly. My rules. And the first rule is simple. Never ever threaten my people. The second rule? Never show up on my corner uninvited. You broke both in less than 5 minutes. That's impressive, in a very stupid way. Paulie finally lost his patience. Enough of this talk. We came here to take control, and that's what we're going to do. If you don't like it, you can call Don Genovese and complain. He's on the phone. Bumpy smiled again. I don't need to call Vito. He already knows I'm here. By the way, Vito and I have an agreement that you 3 clearly don't know about. That made the 3 mobsters pause. Marco looked at Paulie. What is he talking about? Bumpy leaned on his cane. In 1955, Vito Genovese and I sat down in a very nice Italian restaurant on Mulberry Street. We drank wine, ate manicotti, and had a civilized conversation. In that conversation, we reached an understanding. He doesn't send his men to Harlem without telling me first, and I don't interfere in his business in Manhattan. It's a simple agreement. It works well. Everyone wins. Johnny Jr. shook his head. You're lying. If there was an agreement, we'd know about it. Bumpy reached into his coat's inner pocket. The 3 mobsters immediately reached for their guns, but Bumpy just pulled out a folded piece of paper. Illinois, please show this to these gentlemen. Illinois took the paper and opened it in front of the 3 men. It was a handwritten note, in Italian, with Vito Genovese's signature at the bottom. It simply said, Ellsworth Johnson has my respect and my word. Harlem is his territory. Any issues, call first. The color drained from the 3 mobsters' faces. Paulie swallowed hard. We didn't know. No one told us. Bumpy took the paper back. And that's the problem with you young, ambitious kids. You want to build a reputation, want to impress the bosses, so you go out making moves without doing your homework first. Now you've created a problem, not just with me, but with your own boss. Marco slowly holstered his gun. Mr. Johnson, we made a mistake. Can we just leave and forget this happened? Bumpy shook his head. No, you can't. You threatened my people, pulled guns, scared honest merchants who are just trying to survive. You can't just walk away. That wouldn't teach anyone anything. Johnny Jr. was sweating now. So what do you want? Bumpy thought for a long moment. First, you're going to apologize. To every person on this corner. One by one. And not just any apology. A real apology. On your knees. The 3 mobsters looked at each other, horrified. On our knees? We're representing the Genovese family. We can't do that. Bumpy shrugged. Then I call Vito and explain that 3 of his men came into my territory, violated our agreement, and refused to make amends. I'll let Vito decide what to do with you. I bet he'll be very pleased. There was a long silence. Finally, Paulie sighed and knelt in front of Clifford. I'm sorry, sir. It was disrespectful. One by one, the 3 mobsters knelt and apologized to every person on the corner. It took 15 minutes. When they finished, Bumpy spoke again. Second, you're going back to Vito and tell him exactly what happened here. No lies, no embellishments, the full truth. And you're going to tell him that Bumpy Johnson sends his regards and that our agreement stands strong. Understood? The 3 nodded. Third, and this is the most important, you're going to spread the word. Tell every soldier, every thug, every wannabe mobster in New York. Harlem is not available. It never will be. And anyone who tries what you tried today will end up much worse than you did. You got lucky. I'm in a good mood today. Next time I might not be. Paulie stood up, brushing the dirt off his knees. You can count on that, Mr. Johnson. The message will be delivered. The 3 started walking back to the Buick. But Bumpy called them. Oh, one more thing. The car. The black Buick. You're leaving it here. Johnny Jr. turned, confused. What? Why? Bumpy smiled. Because Clifford needs a new car to deliver his newspapers. Consider it a fee for being idiots on my corner. The 3 mobsters looked at each other, but knew they had no choice. Paulie pulled the keys from his pocket and tossed them to Clifford. It's all yours, old man. Clifford caught the keys, grinning ear to ear. Always wanted a Buick. Thanks, boys. The 3 mobsters started walking down the street, defeated, without a car, without dignity. The entire corner watched in silence. Then someone started laughing, then another, and another. In seconds, all 20 people there were laughing. Not cruelly, but out of relief, joy, pride. Bumpy remained serious, but there was a gleam in his eyes. Illinois leaned in and whispered, Boss, they really didn't know where they were, did they? Bumpy shook his head. No, they didn't. But now they do. And more importantly, everyone in New York will know by tomorrow. Clifford approached, holding the Buick keys. Mr. Johnson, thank you, but I really don't need a car. Bumpy put his hand on the old man's shoulder. Clifford, you've been selling newspapers on this corner for 30 years. Through rain, snow, heat. You deserve a car. Enjoy it. And if anyone asks where you got it, tell this story. Tell every detail. Clifford nodded, tears in his eyes. I will, Mr. Johnson. I'll tell it until the day I die. Bumpy turned to the rest of the crowd. And as for the rest of you, remember, Harlem is ours, not because we're the strongest, not because we're the most violent, but because we're the smartest, because we care about each other, because when someone messes with one of us, they mess with all of us. There was a murmur of agreement. People started dispersing, returning to their lives, but with something different in their steps. Confidence, security. Illinois and Bumpy crossed back to the barbershop. Freddie was waiting at the door. Mr. Johnson, your haircut is half done. Bumpy smiled. Then you'd better finish it. He sat back in the chair, and Freddie resumed his work. You know, Mr. Johnson, Freddie said while cutting, those Italians really picked the wrong corner. Bumpy closed his eyes, relaxing. They picked the wrong corner because they didn't do their homework, Freddie. That's the difference between smart men and dead men. Smart men ask questions. Dead men make assumptions. That night, in a restaurant in Little Italy, Paulie Gatto, Marco Vespucci, and Johnny Torrio Jr. sat in front of Don Vito Genovese. They told the whole story, word for word. When they finished, Vito was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. You are idiots. But you're lucky idiots. Bumpy Johnson could have killed you, could have started a war. Instead, he taught a lesson you'll never forget. Now get out of my sight. And so the story spread, through bars, clubs, alleys, and corners. The story of how 3 Italian mobsters tried to take over the wrong corner and learned the hard way that in Harlem there was only one king. And that king didn't rule through violence, but through intelligence, strategy, and the respect he earned by protecting his people. Bumpy Johnson finished his haircut that afternoon, and when it was done, he crossed back to his corner, greeted his neighbors, and continued being the most powerful man in Harlem without firing a single shot.